Did many people go?
There were a sizable number of people there, yeah. It wasn't.
Well, we're gay after all. What's sizable?
Well, I'll show you later on.
Is it quad skating or inline skating?
No. Up at
Roller skating.
Roller skating.
what's the center called?
Oh, I can't remember.
Take it back to the old.
Sort of off of Oakland and 95.
Yeah, on Powerline.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go.
Extreme
Extreme
Action
Action
Park.
Park.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
It was fun. So every first Wednesday of every month.
Yeah. Well, that's fun. Are we talking about 100 people? 5,000 people?
Well, not 5,000. Probably 100 people there, though.
Yeah. Well, that's cool. Well, welcome to Queer News Tonight, the world's first and only LGBTQ daily evening news. It's time to queer up the news. It's 7 p.m. Thursday, February 4th, and we are literally out of the closet and into the headlines. So many of your important stories we are going to tell this evening on Queer News Tonight. The world's first live daily queer evening news show. Out of the closet and into the headlines on Q News Tonight. Well, thank you for joining Queer News Tonight. This is a live, unedited LGBTQ evening news show. Whatever happens, you're going to see it. This evening, we bring you the news of and a perspective representing the LGBTQ community from South Florida, America, and across our world. I'm your Queer News Tonight anchor, Al Ferguson, and tonight, let's welcome actor for a moment, anchor Dr. Ty Hauser.
I can do it all.
Can you? He is an associate professor of, I believe that actually, he is an associate professor of English and Humanities at Broward College. Additionally, he teaches for extended periods of time international colleges in China, India, Spain, and Bolivia. He also serves as our progressive college professor host on Happening Out Television Network's discussion and debate show, Gay Town Hall, alive every Thursday night, which means tonight at 8 p.m. Good evening, Ty.
Good evening, Al. I'm looking forward to a great news program tonight, and I'm looking forward to a great town hall.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. Well, next, let's welcome anchor Victor Diaz-Herman. He is a first-generation Cuban-American openly gay man. Advocate, activist, fundraiser, and strategist. He serves as the Chief Executive Officer of Pride Lines, South Florida's oldest direct services agency for LGBTQ people and a grassroots 501c3 nonprofit organization founded by gay and bisexual youth for LGBTQ youth and their allies. He's also the Chief Operating Officer of Worth International Media Group, with exclusive brands such as Recommend and Preview, is in the business of creating stylish, engaging, and content-rich media solutions for the global travel and tourism industry for over 50 years. Good evening, Victor.
Good evening, Al. I love listening to you talk all about me.
Exactly. Well, we're gay after all, so you've proved why you're an anchor at Queer News Tonight.
And I'm glad to be here.
Exactly. Well, tonight we begin with the queer headlines. The LGBTQ community in South Florida and across America is diverse. Our community across the world is vast, and here are the bullet points of the queer news for today, Thursday, February 4. We begin by queering up breaking queer news. It's the Super Bowl, and Florida is in it. But in 2021, a Super Bowl commercial says it's more. Sunday is special. It's Super Bowl Sunday, and we wonder if the LGBTQ community is excited at all. After all, it's sports. You know that, Ty, right? It's sports. Are we only interested because of the halftime show? How about you, Victor? Or perhaps the commercials? Well, this year, Florida is in it. The lowly Tampa Bay Buccaneers are a symbol of the miserable 2020 we have all experienced. Kansas City represents the dominant and privileged past as winners and more. So we thought we would show you a sneak peek of a commercial that will debut on Sunday. This one from Guinness is special because it challenges the last year with what is going to be next. Watch this.
2 seconds left to play. Clock will start on the snap. So it's all come down to this.
things come to those who wait.
Unbelievable finish.
Wait for it.
Wait for it.
Wait for it.
For it.
I really could use that nice creamy Guinness right now.
Yeah,
Oh,
good,
Lord.
doesn't it? Do y'all care anything about the Super Bowl? Do we care anything about this at all?
This is that concert, right?
Yeah,
I like
Raymond James Stadium. It's a concert. Yeah, yeah. The Weeknd's playing.
It's the one where the boys all wear those tight pants.
And apparently hands are between the thighs.
Yeah,
I
okay,
recognize that.
I recognize that.
Absolutely.
I laugh nervously because I'm still not clear on what we're talking about.
Okay.
Let's hurry up then. We'll go on and we will queer up gay culture. These photos show why Elska loves Lisbon, and me too. Elska magazine, the queer publication dedicated to sharing the bodies and voices of everyday men from LGBTQ+ communities around the world, this week introduces its latest release, Elska Lisbon, where it puts the spotlight on the local boys of Portugal's biggest and most exciting city. Lisbon is undeniably one of Europe's most beautiful capitals, and it's a city that's become a tourist hotspot in recent years, in particular for LGBTQ+ travelers, which makes this latest Elska release the perfect queer souvenir for fans of the city. It's also something to help us dream about taking a future holiday to Portugal, aided by Elska's uniquely honest and spontaneous approach, where readers get to know a random cross-section of everyday local guys who they very well might happen to meet on their own travels. Reading the issue feels like traveling vicariously alongside the Elska team, something we need more and more during this continued pandemic era. Elska editor and chief photographer Liam Campbell said, quote, "I originally shot our Lisbon series in 2016, but COVID-19 hit us hard, meaning it's become impossible to keep up with our usual goal of 6 new cities a year. That's why I decided to ask our most loyal readers to vote for which of our past out-of-print issues to remake, and Lisbon won that vote. I wanted to publish something to keep our most loyal fans entertained, and I hope that everyone will enjoy the chance to discover or rediscover Lisbon," end quote. Elska Lisbon is available now from select shops around the world, as well as from the Elska website, elskamagazine.com, where you can also find details for their highly worthwhile subscription service. Happening Out Television Network will launch a new travel show next week called happeningout.travel with hosts Faye Watt and David Hopkins. The show will help the LGBTQ community restart your world travels, and we love supporting LGBTQ travel content like Elska Lisbon. Yum.
What do you think, Victor?
I'm sorry, I don't know what we were just talking about. I lost all track of what we were saying with those photos.
Yeah.
I'm going to Lisbon.
Yeah.
It was all I could do to read the teleprompter.
It's actually very exciting. In the last couple of weeks, there's been a little spark of, with vaccine and with some of the things that are on the horizon, not today, but what we can see on the horizon, we can see the light at the end of the tunnel coming. Don't know exactly when we get to that light, but we can see it. And when we see media products like this, very, very exciting. And good luck, David Hopkins and Faye Watt, on this new product, because travel is the #1 thing the LGBTQ community says that they spend their money on, traveling, and we have lost that over the last year. We're getting ready to get back into the world.
Absolutely. And on that note, now let's queer up gay culture. Richard Grenell demands White House press secretary to apologize to the gay community over Lady G. The former U.S. ambassador to Germany under President Trump, Richard Grenell, says the current White House press secretary should apologize to gay people for demeaning language she used in a tweet from last year. Grenell, who is gay, highlighted a tweet from Jen Psaki that she posted last August. In it, she used a much-used nickname for Senator Lindsey Graham, saying, quote, "Only in 2020 does #LadyG get to push a bunch of debunked conspiracy theories while questioning @SallyQ Yates, also known as an American hero," end quote. The tweet appeared after Graham quizzed the former deputy attorney, Sally Yates, when she appeared before a Senate Judiciary Committee. Lady G is a nickname that was allegedly coined by male sex workers in D.C. It has gone viral on Twitter on several occasions in reference to the Southern senator. Psaki's tweet was first highlighted this week by the conservative gay organization Outspoken, and then retweeted by Grenell, who said Psaki should apologize. Grenell later reshared Psaki's tweet himself, saying, quote, "Homophobia and intolerance from the left is growing. This should be widely condemned. At press sec," end quote.
Well, you know, this is really an interesting story. Lady G, a very, very interesting story, Lady G, and I really love this story, Lady G. I'm not a big fan of outing anyone. I honestly, I don't think it's desirable or it's fair. However, he's been outed, and he is what he is. I think it's hilarious that Grenell, who has been so anti-LGBT for 4 years as the German ambassador and the DNI director being gay, he does this story calling the press secretary out, which I was completely unfamiliar with. I did not know about this tweet. She was not in office as the press secretary. And Grenell re-outs the senator by publishing this tweet, bringing all of our attention to it. So gay Grenell actually outs gay senator from South Carolina because he did this. And that's what everyone is talking about today, which I think is hilarious.
So Lady G has her ladybugs, and you can say it as much as you want because it's not something that anyone labeled him with other than the sex workers that he apparently used.
Yeah.
So what do you want from us, Lady G? What do you want from us, Grenell?
I don't want to see the senator in any sexual act, so this is not a comfortable topic.
It's just not. Yeah, this has gotten a little uncomfortable, actually. You're right. All right, let's queer up politics. Pete Buttigieg is sworn in as the first out cabinet secretary in a touching ceremony with Kamala Harris. Watch this.
You raise your right hand. I, Peter Buttigieg,
I, Peter Buttigieg,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support and defend
that I will support and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
to the same, that I take this obligation freely
that I take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation
without any mental reservation
or purpose of evasion,
or purpose of evasion,
and that I will well and faithfully discharge
and that I will well and faithfully discharge
the duties of the office
which
I am about to enter. So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations, Mr. Secretary. Congratulations.
Thank you so much, Madam Vice President.
There we are.
Wow. Thank you.
LGBTQ America, you just watched history. Secretary of Transportation Pete Buttigieg was sworn in by Vice President Kamala Harris this morning in the Eisenhower Executive Office building, part of the White House complex. Second gentleman Doug Emhoff and Chasten Buttigieg were also present. In a masked ceremony, Harris led Buttigieg through the oath as he swore to support and defend the Constitution. Harris cheerfully congratulated him afterwards and then elbow bumped Chasten based and because of the COVID-19 protocols. Afterward, Pete Buttigieg hugged his husband moments after he became the first out cabinet secretary in history. This moment, a swearing-in ceremony of the highest-ranking LGBTQ American official, is history, was nearly 52 years in the making after the Stonewall riots. And LGBTQ America gets to participate in this historic moment.
I think I am equally as excited for Pete Buttigieg as I am to have a first gentleman. Like those two things coming together in that office is just, it's monumental. It's very, very exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is definitely a proud moment, not just to have the first openly gay man in such a high position, but also our first female vice president who is a woman of color. It's just, what a moment.
And part of this history is we must continue to remind ourselves Pete Buttigieg is 39 years old. this is only the beginning, only the beginning. Our last two presidents have been in their mid-70s. So imagine what's going to be accomplished in the next 35 years from this individual. Amazing.
I'm older than Pete. What have I done with my life? Well, I'm sat next to you, Al, so I guess nothing. We're going to queer up the world next. Poland loses millions in EU funding due to hateful LGBT-free zones. The southeastern Polish region of Podkarpacie in the Carpathian Mountains had applied for the EU's Cultural and Natural Heritage Project, which offers a $2.25 million funding boost. That's now been canceled thanks to a resolution the region passed in 2019, quote, expressing opposition to the promotion and affirmation of the ideology of the so-called LGBT movements, end quote. The guaranteed grant was withdrawn in September, but the decision only came to light this week when Polish LGBT+ activist Bartosz Staszewski published 3 letters exchanged between Norwegian and Polish officials. Norway's official statement said, quote, by adopting a resolution explicitly referring to LGBT or LGBT ideology, the lead partner discriminates against an identifiable group of persons. The grant had been intended to enhance the route through the Carpathian Mountains, with the money going towards discovering, promoting, and protecting the cultural and natural wealth of the Carpathian region. The project was to translate into prestige and many years of promotion of the region in Europe, but now, instead of the Carpathian Trail, tourists will see the most expensive LGBT-free zone in Poland, end quote. The region is the latest of several LGBT-free zones to lose EU funding, signaling growing international pressure on Poland over its openly homophobic stance. Queer News Tonight suggests you continue to watch this space for more news to come.
Well, I say, wake up, Poland. You don't deserve that money.
Absolutely right. We've reported this week already. This is our second Poland story of the week. We reported earlier in the week that one of the LGBT free zones said, oh, there's a misunderstanding. We really didn't mean to do that. And they rescinded their decision and reversed it because of the financial pressure that was on them, especially the twinning cities programs that Poland's cities and communities highly benefit from other Western European cities. And now we report this and growing pressure. The president of the EU has said, we absolutely are not going to stand for Poland doing this, and pressure is growing and mounting. So in 2021, we're going to see dramatic change in Poland because it's going to be forced on them by money.
This is Classroom Management 101. You reward the behavior that you want to continue, exactly, and you don't reward the behavior that you don't want to continue. So Poland, if you want money to change your behavior to get your money.
Yeah, right.
Well, they should use that money for something else other than because of these LGBT-free zones. Clearly the people living in Poland that identify as LGBTQ are probably experiencing some level of trauma around this.
Yeah. Well, Victor, we're going to move on to a trans rights story.
Yeah, let's queer up trans rights. Biden's Education Secretary nominee confirms support for trans athletes. Watch this.
Do you worry about having boys running girls' track meets?
You know, I recognize and appreciate the concerns and the frustrations that are expressed. I've, as Commissioner of Education, have had conversations with families who have felt the way you just described it, and families of students who are transgender. So I understand that this is a challenge. I look forward to working with you and others to.
Do you think it's fair to have boys running in the girls' track meet?
I think it's appropriate for, I think it's the legal responsibility of schools to provide opportunities for students to participate in activities, and this includes students who are transgender.
So you don't have a problem then with boys running in the girls' track meet, swimming meets, name it, you're okay then with boys competing with girls?
Respectfully, Senator, I think I answered the question. I believe schools should offer the opportunity for students to engage in extracurricular activities, even if they're transgender. I think that's their right.
President Joe Biden's nominee for U.S. Secretary of Education has said it is critically important that the rights of transgender students be respected. Dr. Miguel Cardona, who currently serves as Connecticut's Commissioner of Education, affirmed his support for transgender students in response to a questioning from Senator Rand Paul, the Republican from Kentucky. Paul referenced the letter sent last year by the Trump administration to the Connecticut Interscholastic Athletic Conference, telling it to abandon its policy allowing trans female athletes to compete in girls' sports, or risk losing federal funding. The transphobic exchange from Rand Paul received a surprisingly sharp response of trans rights protections from Cardona. Paul said, quote, "Do you think it's fair to have boys running in the girls' track meet?" End quote. Cardona replied, quote, "I think it's the legal responsibility of schools to provide opportunities for students to participate in activities, and this includes students who are transgender." End quote. Paul then launched into a lengthy, scaremongering diatribe warning about, quote, "hulking 6'4" guys wrestling against girls and called supporting transgender athletes completely bizarre.
You know, this is a big moment. Cardona is going to be approved for the Secretary of Education. Rand Paul is radical and ridiculous on so many subjects, so we dismiss him out of hand. However, what's really interesting in this exchange is the difference of what a year makes. Over the last 4 years, trans has been the center of attack in Republican, Trump, and Washington. And even before he is confirmed, this new Secretary of Education says, basically, that's not going to happen anymore. Flatly, "I've answered your question, sir. It's not going to happen anymore." Brilliant.
The word in the story was the absolute perfect word, scaremongering, because that's what Rand Paul does. He wants everyone to be afraid of anything that they're not familiar with. And I think it's great that we have a secretary who's going to stand up against senators like Paul.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Dr. Cardona answered the question perfectly and stood his ground. It is clear that Rand Paul does not understand gender and the damage that his language could cause for somebody who is or who identifies as a transgender individual that wants to play sports and is watching or wants to play sports with those that they identify in the same gender as, and is watching the senator call them boys in shorts.
Yeah. Well, that's our queer headlines for today. Let's next catch up on the LGBTQ news surrounding COVID-19 with our special segment we call Quarantine Quickies. Tonight, we report the devastating effect that coronavirus has had on the American and worldwide LGBTQ community. Tonight, we report there are 1.2 million total LGBTQ Americans with coronavirus, and more than 32,000 LGBTQ Americans have now died. So let's queer up Quarantine Quickies. Florida grocery store captures country's divide over wearing mask. Watch this.
Video that looks like it was taken pre-pandemic. The Oaks Farm seed-to-table market in Naples, Florida captures the country's divide, with many customers and employees visibly not wearing masks. Despite experts' clear messaging that wearing masks can slow the spread of COVID-19.
The CDC makes recommendations based on data that they accumulate because it's a science-based organization.
When we first asked about the store's mask policy, we were directed to this sign stating the mask exemption guidelines. Those in our lovely government have ordered all persons entering indoor facilities to wear a mask. If you have a medical condition that prevents you from wearing a mask, you are exempt. We cannot legally ask you about your medical condition. Therefore, if we see you without a mask, we will assume you have a medical condition. Alfie Oaks is the store's owner, known for his conservative and often controversial viewpoints.
Is your position then about medical exemptions, or is it about the fact that you don't think masks work and that the virus is not a real thing?
I know that the masks don't work, and I know that the virus has not killed 400,000 people in this country. That's total hogwash.
Wow. At Queer News Tonight, we have reported extensively showing how countries like New Zealand and Australia have managed COVID-19 so much better than America. We have reported on LGBTQ events like Puerto Vallarta at New Year's and Fire Island July 4th. We have reported on American selfish response on masks and weaponizing of precautions. But this week, we watched with our own eyes one of the most shocking examples we've seen. A video that was taken at a South Florida grocery store shows nearly every customer and employee without a mask. The footage was filmed this week at Oaks Farms Seed to Table Market in Naples, about 42 miles south of Fort Myers. In it, not a mask is in sight and social distancing is not being followed. As of Thursday morning, the video on NBC News correspondent Sam Brock's Twitter page has generated 7,600 comments, nearly 16,000 retweets, and more than 20,000 likes. Reactions ran the gamut, with some defending the customers and employees and others expressing outrage. The store's owner, Alfie Oaks, could not be reached for comment today. He told NBC's Today Show he knows masks do not work and doesn't believe the coronavirus has killed hundreds of thousands of people in the United States. Oaks said, quote, "That's total hogwash. Why don't we shut the world down because of the heart attacks? Why don't we lock cities down because of heart attacks?" End quote. Instead of quarantine quickies, we could have run this story in our frequent segment called Freak Show Florida.
There is so much about this story that confuses me. Okay, first of all, seed to table. Shouldn't they be ex-hippies and be following mask guidelines anyway?
Not Trumpsters.
Well, how did Trumpsters get in on that thing? And then the other question is how many crazy hyperbolic comparisons do we need to make to justify our own ignorance or unwillingness to around COVID and to follow the guidelines? It just doesn't. Heart attacks are not coronavirus, people.
Yeah, I feel like I know what news network that the owner of the market watches.
He's not watching Queer News tonight.
No, it's definitely not this one, but where he's getting his information from is beyond me. It's just so ignorant.
Yeah, unfortunately, he is getting his information from South Florida, but just about 35 miles north of us. Well, that is our COVID-19 news for tonight. Next, we report that Happening Out Television Network helps support our LGBTQ community. An example is Sunshine Cathedral, the world's largest queer church here in Fort Lauderdale. We are broadcasting from our permanent set in supporting that partnership. The network broadcasts the largest LGBTQ religious broadcast in the world, with more than 30,000 watching every Sunday at 10:30 a.m. Eastern, and it's totally live. We encourage you to tune in. Our campaign of sponsorship proudly supports Sunshine Cathedral is my queer church. Watch this.
This is Damian Pardo, and I'm the chair of Forward Miami, and Sunshine Cathedral is my queer church.
We'd also like to thank our set designer, Concepto Modern Living here in Fort Lauderdale, for making this set in this amazing queer church campus possible.
Finally, we thank Queer News Tonight's hotel sponsor, Best Western I-95 Fort Lauderdale. This is the closest and best choice to the famous Wilton Drive, and our hosts and guests stay at this LGBTQ ally partner. We encourage you to stay here when you're visiting South Florida.
Well, Queer News Tonight is proud to launch our Thursday night business professional segment we are calling NetWerQ with a Q, where we will highlight and network live with local LGBTQ business leaders, individuals, and organizations from around South Florida. And make sure to start following all of our Happening Out Television Network shows on the business professional and employment-oriented online service platform, LinkedIn.
Tonight's segment features Dr. Michael Kokozos, nicknamed Coco, a self-proclaimed cultural and teaching fellow research with a focus on inclusion and prejudice reduction. To tell us more about his amazing teaching work, research, and article is Dr. Michael Kokozos.
Well, Michael, I understand that we and your students lovingly call you Dr. Coco.
Yeah, yeah. This is what happens when you are one of 6 Michaels RAing in college.
Yeah.
So nobody wanted to go by any version of anything other than Michael. And so my last name, Kokozos, here I am, Coco, and there's nothing like being called Dr. Coco. So I'll tell you that.
Yeah, well, that sounds plausible, but I like Dr. Coco anyway, so I'm going to call you Dr. Coco, regardless of how many Michaels I know. Tell us a little bit first about the program that you run and how does it integrate with college and high school students? Tell us about your program.
Yeah, so I am a part of this program called Pass the Mic Youth. It's a collaboration with NC State University and schools all over the country. It was actually born out of the tragedy of the Pulse nightclub shooting. My dear friend, Dr. Maru Gonzalez, who actually is an assistant professor at NC State University, we were teaching through a program called Leadership Enterprise for a Diverse America. And that was serving the needs of 100 students all across the country from low socioeconomic backgrounds, a program to get them comfortable with the transition from high school to college. And what we had noticed in the summer of 2016, amidst heightened police brutality, by the way, so I think the death of Philando Castile had happened not too long after that, was this perception of paralysis among our students. Just this weight, this palpable weight. And this hashtag from the students, Pass the Mic, was created in response to wanting to express that youthful perspective about what it was like living in the United States at this time. And now, 4 years later, here I am teaching at my university. My friend Maru is teaching at NC State, and we have this awesome podcast. I encourage everyone to check it out wherever you stream audios, hashtag Pass the Mic Youth, and listen to youth perspectives on any of the topics you can possibly imagine. So what's happening in Poland, for example, talking to a climate strike activist. There's a really great podcast called Let's Talk About Race. So we're in the beginnings of the Black History Month, and many educators might be wondering how to integrate Black representation and voices and reflections on identity in the classroom. And I definitely encourage that podcast episode. Again, Let's Talk About Race. It's just become this really wonderful repository to integrate youth perspectives into the classroom and be inspired to find other ways to do that as well.
Dr. Coco, I'm curious, the program, you teach both college students and high school students, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And this program for Pass the Mic is not designed to be exclusively for LGBT or non-LGBT students. You incorporate the diversity of many subjects and many themes to encourage students to participate in many different ways. Is that correct?
That's absolutely right. So here I am teaching at high school, and I've had many students participate in the last couple of years. And we have wonderful stories that are highlighting the perspectives of college students. At this time, many students were on the campus of NC State. And there is a very easy way on the website. So if you go to the NC State Pass the Mic Youth website, you'll see an opportunity for teachers to share how they're taking up the hashtag in their school community. And as you said, whether you're in high school or whether you're in college, we just want to know what students are thinking about and how they express those views in whatever artistic fashion they prefer. Is it a spoken word? Is it a poem? So yes, we have the podcast, and we've been really excited to think about how to use podcasting in the classroom, but it is not limited to just that. When any educator goes to the website, you'll see that there's all sorts of inspirational ways to support students in communicating their passions, communicating their perspectives to the rest of the world, as well as just resources to make that happen too.
It's so interesting. What a perfect night for us to do this NetWerQ subject and have you as a guest at Queer News Tonight. We've got Dr. Hauser from Broward College with us as a regular anchor. And we have Victor, who is the executive director of Pride Lines in Dade County. And it is principally designed, especially in its focus, for LGBTQ youth. Do you have an outreach function in this program of Pass the Mic, or is it mostly through the high school students that you teach and the college students you teach? And I invite
Well,
Victor or Ty to come in any way you would like.
yeah, so I mean, first I want to say I encourage people to use this hashtag Pass the Mic Youth as a way to tell the stories of LGBTQ communities. So I'm at a school that has a club called Spectrum. It's the equivalent to a GSA or a Gay Straight Alliance, and I bring up Pass the Mic Youth in that space. I've actually done a lot of research in regards to LGBTQ inclusion. So, you know, when you have that passion and you get that energy from your students, you provide them with this wonderful opportunity to share what they're talking about in the classroom with a wider audience. You know, it's really wanting to give youth the platform. I mean, I try so much in my work to take a back seat, and especially when it comes to the LGBTQ community, because I am a member of the LGBTQ community. I want to find ways to use something like a Pass the Mic Youth and other ways to just promote that perspective as much as possible.
Michael, what high school in Dade County is this?
So I teach at Gulliver Prep, and I also teach at the University of Miami.
Oh, very nice.
It's my alumni.
Yeah.
Victor, Ty, anything that you would like to ask Michael?
Actually, I'd just like to commend Michael for his work at Gulliver. I went to school at Gulliver at a time when we did not have the equivalent of a GSA, and I knew it took some time to get to that point. So thank you for, I don't know if you brought it there, but definitely thank you for doing the work you're doing. And I think that the stories of our young people, the experiences of our young people are so powerful, and I appreciate that you've embarked on this project to elevate those voices and stories.
Thank you, Victor. And I should say that I did not bring Spectrum to Gulliver Prep, but I'm very close with the faculty members, my friends Neil and Manny, who have been instrumental in keeping it going, but really the students have been keeping it going. I should say, amidst the pandemic, do not underestimate having a virtual space for the students to connect in the same way, to tell stories about their trials and tribulations. You know, it's so important, whether we think about space in the classroom or the virtual space, to be able to connect with a community of those who will accept you, love you, and just understand what it's like to be in high school in a pandemic and what it's like to be queer in a pandemic. You know, so it's been really great to watch the students be a part of that and help facilitate that in any way that I can.
So I just, my question really is not a question, because I think what you're just going to say is, idiot, read the article. But LGBTQ normative frameworks sounds really exciting to me. So I think I'll read it, and then I'll come back to you and we can talk about it, because right. You can't go through the whole thing. But also, how do I get myself to have a cute name like yours?
Well, I mean, yeah, I guess have a generic name like Michael. That's how. And you know, I appreciate you bringing up the article, because so the article, Critical Inclusion and Thinking About LGBTQ Normative Frameworks. I love the idea and love being a part of GSAs and some of those, what you might begin to call normative, especially if you think about the homonormative ways in which we might be taking up inclusion in school context. And you never want to not celebrate that, because sometimes that's the biggest leap you can possibly hope for. But it is important, recognizing the diversity of LGBTQ communities, that you have to think differently about the curriculum, that you have to think differently about activism, that you have to think differently in terms of what we might be doing that is including some but not all. There are certain members of the LGBTQ community who benefit a great deal from the political processes of inclusion, but there are a great number that are excluded as well. And there's no better example than trans youth of color. And so that's one of the reasons why I encourage looking at that article. You know, sometimes we as researchers get to use the article space to dream up these worlds that you can only possibly imagine of what you want school to be. And, you know, we have to balance recognizing these small steps that we take towards justice, but also recognize those who are still paying the price for those slow steps.
So it's kind of for me, it's kind of a paradigm shift in the way you're presenting it in the title, because I'm used to kind of working at questioning and working against heteronormativity, but you're saying that there is an LGBTQ normative thing out there. So it's kind of like a more positive way of looking at it. Rather than tearing something down, it's reinforcing something good.
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to do that. I mean, I certainly think it's always wonderful for any educator to think about how do we disrupt this idea of what it means to be good and normal in a way that we can still exclude, and how do we avoid foreclosing opportunities of a good life. I mean, one example that I can think of is there's all these excellent LGBTQ children's books out there, but they still present this very squeaky clean image of what this good life looks like. And you know, you can use that tool on one hand to look like these families exist and aspiring to that is beautiful, but there are still many members of the LGBTQ community and broadly using the construct of queer who will benefit from recognizing that this life has many other opportunities of what pathways can look like too. And I just want to be able to simultaneously have that conversation. It's difficult for sure, but I want to be able to recognize where we've made gains, but also continue to be open to other ways in which we can think about what it means to have value in a school, in a classroom, and in society in general.
You know, Michael, this program, very interesting. I'm going to read a lot more about it. Hashtag Pass the Mic, and the different subjects that you cover for LGBT students and other traditional students in high school and college. Let me give you the opportunity to hashtag Pass the Mic. Today, sworn in front of the first gentleman of the vice president and his husband, is the highest ranking LGBTQ official in American history. In terms of hashtag Pass the Mic to you, what did you think about today?
So that was the second time that I was looking at that clip, and it hit me even more, and I think it's because I'm with you. I mean, I know we're virtually connected, but there's something like when you're amidst your community and watching something that is so, I mean, you had also made this point of how much can happen in a year, right? How much can happen in a moment, and so much can happen. I mean, elections have consequences. It means to me a great deal. Listen, I myself don't necessarily know what I want for my future, but I do know that I want every single member of the LGBTQ community to think that if they have any type of aspiration, it's possible. And if that's within the walls of government, may it be that. And that's what I had thought when I was watching that happen between Mayor Pete and Vice President Kamala Harris.
Yeah, amazing day. Hashtag Pass the Mic. Dr. Coco, I get to say that one more time. This has been quite a pleasure. We congratulate you on the work that you're doing with high school students and college students, and promoting and celebrating the diversity that we want in our communities. And so thank you very much for being with us tonight at Queer News Tonight.
My pleasure. Thank you so much.
All right, well, next and finally, we're going to end tonight's broadcast with the big finish. These are today's silly or news that entertains the LGBTQ community. Victor, are you ready? These are the crazies of the day. In the big finish, Kathy Griffin. We haven't heard from her in a while. She has gotten the ultimate revenge on MAGA harasser of her by turning her into the FBI because she saw her rioting at the Capitol.
Was that the rioter?
I love this picture.
Thoughts, Ty?
I'd love to see Kathy back in the news. Let's more from her, please. And yeah, if you get to turn someone into the FBI who's been harassing you, go for it.
Yeah,
I love it.
It's a great story. In the big finish, wah wah for us in South Florida, Ivanka welcomes and receives a not so warm welcome into her new Miami neighborhood. This happened yesterday, all day long in front of her new building that she was moving in at.
This is fantastic. So we now have someone flying signs trolling Trump up in Palm Beach. We have someone driving around trolling his daughter down in Miami. Who do I donate to keep this going? How do I support this effort? Please, I will write you a check.
I second your questions, and I also wish they would pack up their crap in those trucks and get the heck out of town.
That's right. Well, that's no way to speak to next governor Ivanka or next Senator Ivanka. And as to Ty's challenge, Power Infinity, we thank you very much for writing the checks on the banners and the truck. In the big finish, QAnon anti-LGBTQ nutjob, Marjorie Taylor Greene. Ouch! Watch this.
Mitch McConnell, somebody who suggested that perhaps no airplane hit the Pentagon on 9/11, that horrifying school shootings were pre-staged, and that the Clintons crashed JFK Jr.'s airplane is not living in reality. But
to watch and just also very concerning at the same time. I just can't get over I can't believe half the things she does and says.
The funny thing is that of the 70 million, there's probably at least 4 million that are just like her.
Oh, that's for sure.
Yeah, that's the shame.
Well, that is today's news for the LGBTQ community on the world's first and only daily LGBTQ evening news show. Is our community important to you?
Then help us by liking and subscribing, ring the bell for updates, share this news. We are the only television live video news that is out of the closet and into the headlines.
I'm your anchor, Al Ferguson, and on behalf of anchors Dr. Ty Hauser and Victor Diaz-Herman, we will see you daily at 7 p.m. Good night, LGBTQ America, and live proud.